Hello everyone, what's happening? I know it's been a while since I've done a video for this channel, but I've thought about this recently and I kinda got excited to see where it could end up going. This is Pokemon Red or Blue plus Yellow in Ultra Minimum Battles. I'll get to why I'm calling this challenge Ultra Minimum Battles a little later. Now, beating the first generation Pokemon games with the least amount of battles possible is not a new concept. Creators like JRose11 and RBY Pokemon Challenges have their channels revolve around beating these games with limitations like this. Hell, even RBY Pokemon Challenges has covered super minimum battles before, where you use the colour case from Pokemon Stadium 2 to trade back a freshwater into a Gen 1 game, allowing early access to Saffron City, plus having a Mew with all of the HM moves necessary to get to the end of the game, as well as other skips. So what is Ultra Minimum Battles? Essentially it's similar to Super Minimum Battles with the traded Mew and Freshwater, however we can utilise a glitch item to bypass huge chunks of the game and cause some serious sequence breaks. The item in question is aptly named which has an internal ID number of hex 7, which in decimal is also 7. Not to be confused with the same named item with ID hex 2c or decimal 44, that does absolutely nothing and seemingly doesn't even exist. Now what does this mysterious item do, the one with ID 7? Well, it allows you to surf on water without any Pokemon and without the need for beating Koga to get the Soul Badge, which is pretty rad if you ask me. So this is the question I'm asking. What is the absolute minimum number of battles needed to beat Pokemon Red or Blue and Yellow without resorting to SRAM corruption or other game breaking glitches like block through walls? Because, you know, corrupting the game's state and warping to the Hall of Fame with 0 battles is pretty boring. For reference, Pokemon Red and Blue can be beaten with 68 battles normally and 40 in the Super Minimum Battles case, with Yellow version requiring 65 battles and 38 in the Super Minimum Battles case. Alrighty then, let's begin. Now I'm going to forewarn everyone here, I'm not an expert Pokemon player, nor do I have the most ideal setup to achieve what I want for the purposes of this video, so cheats will be incorporated. In fact, I think there's no way Ultra Minimum Battles is possible without cheating because getting an item with ID 7 in a Gen 1 game is difficult. Keep in mind, in Gen 2, so Gold, Silver, Crystal, the item with ID 7 is the bicycle, and I'm pretty sure you can't trade back items from Gen 2 to Gen 1, let alone a key item like the bicycle. It would be pretty funny though, a bicycle that magically transforms into a surfboard via a trade. As for the run itself, I'm using TheZZAZZGlitch's Pokemon Yellow Debug ROM for this, which is the easiest way for me to get the necessary items and moves needed. In addition, I'm going to be using a slightly overleveled Mewtwo as my test Pokemon, which won't be burdened by disobedience to get through this challenge. Come on, you seriously think I'm going to try to do this legitimately? Hopefully you will understand why for reasons I will soon explain. So first things first, we need to acquire our Pikachu from Professor Oak and battle our rival for the first time. Win or lose, this doesn't really matter, it would only end up affecting the roster of the future rivals' teams, however I think for a more challenging run, you want to win here. The reason for this is because we'll be using our Mewtwo for the rest of the run, which would only be obtainable through a trade. Personally, I wouldn't consider the catching of a random Pokemon a battle, but if you disagree, simply add 1 to the battle count at this point. Again, realistically speaking, the only way to get started with this run is to have a traded Pokemon and our magic surfboard, hence the need to do this. I think the easiest way to acquire the magic surfboard is to hack the ROM to replace the potion in the PC with the item with ID 7. Can you think of any other way this item could be sent to a new game? Also, we need to trade over our HM Mew as well, which means we need to trade our starter Pokemon and you cannot initiate a trade with only 1 Pokemon in your party, which only consolidates the reasoning for doing this. And before I forget, I need to elaborate on a point I mentioned earlier. I will not have a Mewtwo that will disobey me. Basically, traded Pokemon can disobey your commands if you don't have certain gym badges and they are at a level that is beyond a level cap. For example, getting the Cascade badge from Misty increases a Pokemon's obedience level cap to 30. If you're thinking of doing this practically, I think you would need a Pokemon that is at least in the level 30s, so disobedience will be a serious issue, at least to start with. You'll see why very soon. Now, most people would assume I'd go to Pewter City and beat Brock, but I've got other plans. So here's an interesting question for you. Can you go from Pallet Town to Fuchsia City with no battles? Surprisingly, the answer is yes. In Yellow version it's pretty easy, since Route 19 has been redesigned slightly, meaning you can avoid these trainers pretty easily. But even in the Red and Blue versions, you can bypass these trainers by walking over this spot, meaning you can get to Fuchsia City with no mandatory battles. That's right, you can go from Pallet Town to Fuchsia City with 0 battles being taken. I'll probably show some sped up footage so you can see what I mean. Shockingly, you can even get to Lavender Town with 0 battles, so I think I'm going to need some more sped up footage here, but then you're fucked, to put it lightly. At this point you need to battle Clefairy Girl on Route 8. This is a very difficult battle even with a Pokemon as overpowered as Mewtwo, because you're really underleveled for this part of the game if you do this with any starter, even if you modify one of them to be a Mewtwo. I don't think this is even possible with a level 5 Pokemon period. Yeah, I'm talking about if you only modified the starter Pokemon and started the route as I've outlined so far without modifying the Pokemon's level or anything. However, if Clefairy Girl can be defeated, you open up access to Saffron City, Celadon City and Cerulean City, which is crazy to believe considering you would have only beaten 2 trainers to get to this point. This is because of the fresh water that the colour case from Pokemon Stadium 2 can allow us to have. Vermilion City can't be reached because of 2 trainers that block the northern entrance, and there's no way to get around the sleeping Snorlax at this point in time, which is south of Lavender Town on Route 12. We passed this guy already. However, I have an alternative strategy. Let's take on Misty. Yeah, Misty as battle number 3 is not something you would have ever thought of, right? Don't forget, we have our magic surfboard, which means we can skip the junior trainer that is usually required to even get to Misty. It's going to be tough, but if we can win, we'll be able to use Cut outside of battle, which is very useful. Now, how about this for a really dumb idea? Well, how about we don't heal at all along this journey? That is, we don't heal at any Pokemon Center. We can go into them, just not heal in them. Yeah, we need to go all the way from Pallet Town to Cinnabar Island, navigate through the Seafoam Islands, get to Fuchsia City, go along routes 12, 13, 14 and 15, get to Lavender Town, then beat Clefairy Girl and Misty without healing at a Pokemon Center. The reason for this insane decision is because if we beat Misty, we can use Teleport from our HM Mew and warp back to Pallet Town. This means we can progress as if we were doing a standard minimum battles challenge, however we can skip the last bug catcher in Viridian Forest because we can use Cut here on Route 2. We don't even need to do the fetch quest for Professor Oak, we can walk around the guy who blocks our path by using Cut here. That is if you want to. I chose not to do this, but it is an option. Then we can fight Brock, and in case you haven't noticed this, we have Cut on our HM Mew and Misty's gym badge, meaning we can cut our way through to Vermilion City with a battle count of 4. This routing completely removes the need to go to routes 3 and 4 plus Mount Moon, so that's why I've done it this way. If you think you could go to Pewter City first and beat Brock earlier than what I've outlined in the video so far, you would not be doing ultra minimum battles because you would have to beat the last bug catcher in Viridian Forest as mentioned earlier. Don't get me wrong, the extra levels would be slightly more useful, but it wouldn't really change things too much. The reason why I'm bringing this up is for a reason you might not even realise could be a potential roadblock for doing this challenge practically. And that reason is wild encounters. You see, the magic surfboard is allowing us access to areas of the game we shouldn't have access to at this point in time, so the Pokemon here are at a higher level than us. This introduces an issue, especially when we can't run away from the wild encounters. This gives the wild Pokemon a chance to attack us, potentially KOing us, and ultra minimum battles prevents us from doing anything to protect ourselves. And if that's not bad enough, we'll black out and lose money when this happens, which is not something we want at all. My counter for this issue is to simply use a high level Pokemon, such as the HM Mew, and hack in a max repel so wild encounters won't happen. I understand someone like RBY Pokemon Challenges disables wild encounters altogether, unless there's a reason to do so, but by doing that, you would never know that something like this could cause problems in the first place. Honestly, I would consider this video to be more of a framework for someone else to use to potentially do a run of this, as opposed to being a serious challenge that I'm trying to beat on my own. So yeah, wild encounters are going to be problematic, on top of the difficult battles against Clefairy Girl and Misty. Good luck if you're trying to do this legitimately, you'll certainly need it. Anyway, getting back to the run at Vermilion City, we can use our magic surfboard, or cut, or both, to take on Lieutenant Surge, bringing the battle count up to 5. Beating Surge grants us access to fly, and assuming we've at least been into the Pokemon centres in all of the locations we could access, this allows us to fly to pretty much any location we want. We can take on Erica at Celadon's gym, which has one required battle plus Erica, which brings the total battle count to 7. Lavender Tower would ideally be the next stop, where we battle Rival 4, or Rival 2 in ultra minimum battles, as well as 3 mandatory channelers. Here's where we use another sequence break, the ability to bypass Ghost Marowak. This is obviously unintentional on the game's behalf, but if you use a Pokédoll on the ghost without the Silph Scope, the game thinks you've beaten the ghost and allows you access to the top floor of Lavender Tower, meaning you don't have to go through the Team Rocket hideout in Celadon City like you normally would. This is required because you need to rescue Mr. Fuji to open up Silphco in Saffron City, and Team Rocket needs to be defeated in Silphco to allow us access to Sabrina's gym in order to get to the Pokemon League. Here we battle Jessie and James for the first time, even though it's supposed to be the 3rd time we've battled them. In the red and blue versions, there's 3 Rocket Grunts instead, which adds 2 extra battles to the battle count. By blasting these rockets into outer space, we rescue Mr. Fuji and can progress. This brings the battle count total to 12 in yellow and 14 in red and blue. Now there's a couple of different paths you could take. I think the easiest step to take right now would be to take on Silphco, which means we're headed back to Saffron City. We need to fight this rocket to gain access to the card key, plus we need to fight Rival Fivel in order to get to Boss Rocket, as the rival refers to them as. Of course, this isn't Rival Fivel to us, it's only the 3rd rival battle in the game so far. On the top floor of Silphco we fight Jessie and James again, or a Rocket Grunt in red and blue, and beating them grants us access to Giovanni 2, or the first battle against Boss Rocket in ultra minimum battles. That brings the Silphco number of battles to 4, bringing the overall total to 16. I won't keep mentioning the battle count for red and blue, just know it's 2 higher than yellow's total until I say otherwise. With Silphco dealt with, we can take on Sabrina, which will add 1 battle to the total count, then move on to Koga, where you need to deal with 2 mandatory jugglers in order to even get to Koga. So that adds 3 more battles, then we need to traverse back to Cinnabar Island. Fortunately, the Pokemon Mansion and Blaine's Gym have no required battles, so there's another 1 battle to add. As I did earlier, I can show some sped up footage that shows me getting through the Pokemon Mansion with 0 battles. Plus you can avoid all of the trainers in Blaine's Gym by getting the answers to Pokemon related questions correct. My favourite question has to be that TM28 contains Tombstone brother! With 7 gym leaders down, we have 1 left to go with a battle count of 21. The last gym is located in Viridian City, which becomes accessible when you have 7 gym badges. There's 2 mandatory battles plus Giovanni 3, who's actually Giovanni 2 in ultra minimum battles, so our counter is increased to 24. With all 8 gym badges in hand, we can proceed onwards to the Pokemon League. However, the rival wants to test us beforehand, so we beat his ass up and add an extra battle to the total. With good routing, you can avoid every trainer in Victory Road, meaning we only have the Pokemon League to contend with before the challenge is completed. just be careful not to run into anybody accidentally like I did. So, let's do this. First off is Laura Lee, or Lorelei, however you choose to pronounce her name, then Bruno, then Agatha, the Dragon Master Lance, and unsurprisingly, the rival champion. Funnily enough, the champion battle is rival rival in Ultra Minimum Battles. So yeah, we topple the league and end the challenge with 30 battles. This means Pokemon Red and Blue can be completed with only 32 battles. I did lose once to the champion because of some bad luck, which was the only L I took for the entire run, at least after I gave myself the overleveled Mewtwo. So that's the framework everyone, hopefully it all makes sense. If you had trouble following along at any point, probably as a result of how I scripted this video, then I'll leave a link to an unlisted video where I show the entire run unedited. I'll card it and link it in the description and comments if you want to check that out. Now this isn't where I'm going to end this video because there's a couple of questions that I need to ask first. As I mentioned near the start of the video, I was performing this run on a modified version of Pokemon Yellow, one which allows you to give Pokemon and items from the beginning of the game. In a test run, I must have forgotten to get the Pikachu from Professor Oak and never battled the rival in Oak's lab. This didn't seem to affect things too much, it seemed as if the rival had the Vaporeon team as I progressed through the run, but something very interesting happened when I got to the champion battle. Take a look at this, the champion sends out a level 13 Psyduck. Yeah, that's not supposed to happen, right? Then he sends out a level 13 Rhyhorn, a level 13 Nidoran male, a level 13 Tentacool, a level 13 Zubat, and finally, a Missingno. In case you don't know, Missingno in Yellow version can cause some serious issues. It's nowhere near as safe as it is in Red and Blue, so this could be a potential run killer. That is unless you get pretty good luck and the Missingno doesn't trash your game, then you can battle it. And before I forget, the Missingno is at level 13 as well. An interesting thing that happens when you encounter a Missingno in Yellow, supposing that it doesn't brick your game, is that it causes the marching clones effect. Essentially there's a whole load of glitched NPCs who walk around, and this could be another stopping point for the run, because if you're unlucky, you won't be able to walk through the map connection to the Hall of Fame room, and of course the controls are disabled. Again, another run killer. I got lucky and managed to beat the game. One thing that is interesting to me is that Professor Oak believes we left Pallet Town with 3 Trainer Pokey, which is the Pokemon with ID number 0 in Pokemon Yellow. If you ask me, I think this happened because of a failsafe or triggering the champion battle with an invalid roster, but I really don't know. So my questions are, what caused the rival to have this team? Could this team beat the Elite Four without modifying their levels or movesets? What happens if this is done in Pokemon Red or Blue? And finally, what happens when you bring a 4-4 into the Hall of Fame? Well, I can answer one of those questions for you. The answer is nothing interesting. It doesn't cause the game to explode like it normally would, probably because its back sprite was displayed first and corrupted the graphics. The music did change though. Rather anticlimactic, I know. Alrighty then, that's all I have to say about that strange occurrence. And with that being said and done, this is where I'm going to be concluding this video. To reiterate, Pokemon Red and Blue's Ultra Minimum Battles count is 32, while Pokemon Yellow's is at 30. If you allow for other glitches, such as block through walls, you can get an even lower battle count. I feel the absolute minimum you can get to is 21 battles in Yellow version, but I'm not going to be investigating that further. Feel free to leave your ideas and feedback in the comments section, and why not subscribe to my channel and check out some of my other videos. The next video that will be uploaded is probably not going to be Pokemon related, however I do want to do another video about Gen 1 Pokemon at some point. And who knows, it could result in me talking about some of the other Pokemon games in the future. Take care out there, everyone.